Oh, yeah. So we are going to start this class. And as always, we'll start with the refuge and the bodhicitta. And as I mentioned yesterday briefly, how useful and helpful to start the day with these two minds as a follower of the teachings of the Buddha. Also, the following within the teachings, following the Bodhisattva and the teachings, and also useful and helpful during the day to remind ourselves, these two minds, which is, and particularly before going to bed, briefly to recall whatever happened during the day. It already happened. Pleasant, unpleasant, cold or hot, wet, whatever is already happened. But try to go to bed, go to sleep with the refuge and the bodhicitta. That will be extremely helpful. And that will be a very, very good training for ourselves, our minds. Because, in our daily lives, in our everyday lives, we have many good times. Also, we face many challenging times. And when we encounter those difficulties, of course, if there are solutions, external solutions, to be reduce that challenge, remove that challenge, of course, use those, whatever, medicines, or for me, it's going for a walk, whatever is there, we can use that. But also it is good to use our mind, our minds, and to bring the refuge and to bring the bodhicitta. As I mentioned yesterday, His Holiness Dalai Lama says very often from his own experiences, once we are able to think well-beings of many, many living beings, then our own, those challenges, those difficulties become very insignificant, very minute, not very big. If we only think our own, just me, my suffering, my difficulty, then it sometimes become very unbearable. And so that is something useful, to go to bed with the mind of refuge and bodhicitta. When we face challenges, difficulties, of course, reduce, solve with whatever means and methods are there outside, but also use our Buddhist training, refuge and bodhicitta. Then, of course, the topic that we are discussing, the realization of emptiness, realization of dependent origination, those are something that we should use as a solution. And through that training, as I mentioned yesterday briefly, when we faced our last breathing of this life, there is a great chance, we will move to the next with the refuge and bodhicitta. If we are able to do that, then that will be very, very meaningful for us. We all believe there is a life after this, and this life and next life have a strong connection. And what we do during this lifetime will affect to the next life. And those great teachers, have said again and again that junction, that connection, the mind which connect from this life to the next life is very, very crucial, important. That doesn't mean, that while we are healthy and, we can just mess up everything and just last minute hold a very positive mind. That is almost impossible. Training and to make it happen should start from here, right here and now. Then there is a chance. There is a hope. These positive mind may occur at the time of that very important time. If that happens, then very, very meaningful for our next life. So think about it. And myself, sometimes I have a character nature to undermine some of those great, what you call the big teachings. I've said, yes, but yes, we all could have those powerful, very popular, and very, it is good to have those teachings to be received. But what we can do right here and now is the refuge and the bodhicitta. That's what we can do right here and now. And sometimes I noticed some of our Western friends who have been in Buddhist quite a long time, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, and start to learn some of the not very healthy Tibetan culture that is saying, oh, I'm going to have these teachings that will leave some imprints. This will help for my next life. That is our Tibetan culture, which is not very healthy culture. Looking for the next, just dismissing or ignoring the present. So we will start with the refuge and bodhicitta recitation. Sangye Chedang Tsoji Chanjo Parko Dage Jenso Jimbe Tsong Dola Penje Sangye Sangye Chedang Tsoji Chanjo Parko Dane Parko Dage Jenso Jimbe Tsonam Dola Penje Sangye Sangye Chedang Tsoji Chanjo Parto Dani Bako Dage Jenso Jive Tsonam Dola Penje Sangye refuge and the bodhicitta as our main motivation to join this gathering. Now I will say the generic mantra, 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. While I'm saying the mantra, we all hold very strong loving kindness and great compassion. And that loving kindness and great compassion will express towards all living beings. Nobody is excluded from our expression of love and compassion. And particularly those living beings, human beings who are going through a very, very challenging time, difficult time. And that is something many of us can do, to express, to share our empathy very sincerely. And it should usually, in the training, it starts upon oneself, one's own loved ones, one's own, the family members, colleagues, and then slowly to extend towards all living beings. That is the actual training, day in, day out, week in, week out, month and month, year in, year. You should train to, to express our love and compassion, bodhicitta, in that manner, in that fashion. Then there will be, after decades, there will be some tangible evidence. If you're all the time, just in a just simple in a formal wish, not particularly training on, then of course with the wish is helpful, useful, great, but it won't make that much in the progress. So while I'm saying the mantra, express our love and compassion towards all living beings. Om. Ne, ne, Om. Om. Ne, ne, Om. Ne, Om. Ne, and the Deva had said in his guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, and this beautiful two lines, which is relevant to what I just said before the mantra chanting. In Tibetan, he said this: "Rangi tundu tendesim milam tuyang avina shinji tundu kalaje." So, rangi tundu tendesim, for the sake of one's own benefit, if we are unable to think, in this case, bodhicitta, in a bodhicitta, then there is no way to generate bodhicitta for the sake of others. And that is what I've just said before the mantra recitation. When it comes to the actual training to express love, compassion, altruism, tolerance, patience, all these mental training, when it comes to the actual training, then we have to go into very specific, stage by stage. It is very clearly, state or practice in the Western or in the modern, the psychology training, to understand other beings, other people's mental difficulties. Oneself has to seek 300, 400 hours training to understand one's own mental difficulties, and also stated in many other ways. And it is exactly the same in here. That if we are unable to express genuine love and compassion to ourselves, then it is difficult. We may be able to express attachment, mixture of attachment and compassion to our friends, our family members, so on and so forth. But pure love, pure compassion is very, very difficult. So therefore, training, of course, when we talk about, then we talk more in the, up here. But when it's come to the actual training, then it has to go specific, then deal with to see how much we are able to handle to express genuine love to ourselves, our close friend members. Then through that, then to the friends, colleagues, slowly to extend. That is the actual training. And this is what clearly stated in these 3 lines by, Shantideva. So useful to think, what in, the strategizing is one of the specialists, one of the special sort of things in the West. But a strategy should not be and only the external development. So strategize also internal development. So anyway, that is important to remember those 3 lines. And training. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Now, because in front of us quite a big task to finish this text. So I'm not going to say that much for reading the text. So, just to recall, to refresh our minds, our last, not yesterday, and also previous weekends, the main point is very much try to understand, based on this text, dialogue between the Atisha and his disciple, Dom, to understand what is the root of our difficulties. And root of our difficulty is very much within ourselves. And that is, self-grasping, the self-grasping. And that is, and through that, went through, what is self-grasping and practically how can we understand self-grasping, philosophically how self-grasping is defined and so on and so forth. And then, yesterday we moved on to talk about then, if we have that kind of distorted mental state, such as self-grasping, and the analogy or example is given by the Atisha, like the mirage, like the what you call the double moon and so forth. Then the Dom's question is how it is possible. Very weak, doesn't have any strength, external strength or anything like that, but very weak, that kind of minds can cause huge difficulties, keep us in this kind of conditioning existence all the time. And Atisha, said it is simply the distorted power of the distortion, that keep us. And then, it moves to a little bit to talk about, this, remember this expression, dogs bark in the wilderness because of an empty container. That expression, I don't know in English how smooth or how pleasant, but in Tibetan, that expression is very, very nice expression to understand how our minds are very much caught up in that empty container and all the time barging, searching more and more. And that really, keep us in this endless circle. And this expression, sometimes when I think in Tibetan, it has a very nice image. Like in Tibetan, here in English, when it says wilderness, in Tibetan it says longdong. Longdong is empty, sort of completely empty space, no human beings, no sentient beings. And then seeing an empty container and a very hungry dog. And that image is something very powerful image. And that brings to here to ourselves, while we constantly chasing more and more and more, like that hungry dog, barking again and again. Why are you constantly chasing more and more? And so forth, And some of those unpleasant things constantly want to push away, saying, don't come close to me, like that kind of two things. So this expression is very useful expression. And in English, then it continues saying, and our mind stream is greatly perturbed with no ground at all. Think about, very often when we have argument, because now being abbot of this monastery, I have to lead meetings again and again and again. And then, 20, 30 months saying, trained in the debating yard, constantly, grown up in debating. Your opponent say yes, you try to make no. Your opponent say no, you try to make yes. Grown up in that kind of environment, then chairing the meeting is sometimes impossible because they don't look at what is the main point, agenda. If somebody says this is how it works, the other one really wants to make it. That is not like that. That's the other way around. Because they are grown up in that kind of environment. Then you can see really that constantly, and that is what the sense of self-grasping. Originally, if we trace back, it is because of the self-grasping. Don't want to lose your point, what you made earlier, and so on and so forth. So this is what earlier we have seen one or two beautiful expressions made by Atisha in Tibetan. Mi go, go, go. Mi go, go, go. Me goes. Something that we don't need. And go, go, but we need many things. So this kind of expression all the time. What in English here they put it, Jimbo put it very nicely to say, this. Wants everything, and transfer all blames onto others. All the good things, all the positive things. I want to win the argument, and he want to lose. He need to lose that argument. And that is the point here. And so helpful to bring closer to search how our self-grasping functions, how it arises, and on what basis it arises, and on what basis it arises. When it arises, how we behave. Those are the things, self-grasping itself. But then also yesterday and previous week, when self-grasping, this mind, arises, it arises on the basis of something, not nothing. It basis of something. And on what basis the self-grasping arises? And it arises on the basis of I or self, which added more qualities or more the features on the basis of I or the self. And that is again, as I mentioned many times yesterday, we need to analyze. It is not somebody will point to us saying, what you call the exaggerate, or you added qualities or features on the self, like this and that. It is through our own analysis. Some of you remember, and I'm sure you have read books, teachings, that one of the good occasion is to look at self-grasping is bungee jumping. When you are on the stage of bungee jumping in that platform, that time is very, very good to watch our self-grasping, how strong that our self-grasping is, and where it holds on, and how it holds on. Those are the things, that in Tibet, when those great teachers give teaching for many, many days, and when they reach at a certain stage, particularly on the stage, on the subject of emptiness, giving maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 days continuously, and then teacher will let the students just let go for 1 or 2 days to search for self-grasping and to try to understand how self-grasping. And some of those, in Tibet those days, there's no bungee jump. But so some of those practitioners, they go to very close to high cliff and sit on there next to the edge of the cliff and see how the self-grasping arises and holds on. It sometimes doesn't need to be like that. There's one occasion that in the story, one Kadamba master just walking, and one of his feet, knocked on this small stone. That was very painful, and that triggered him to think about how self-grasping arises. So it is very much our training our mind, to understand the nature of self-grasping. So now that today, as I promised yesterday, today we are going to talk on, the conventional self. The self, which is the object of the self-grasping, not what is exaggerated by the self-grasping, but the object of the self-grasping. Self or I or the person or the individual who goes, comes, sits, listens, eats, wash, and go from this life to next life. That is what we talk about, conventional I, conventional self. That does exist. If I or the self did not exist, then all our spiritual, what called journey is empty. Self does it. And that is very important when we are talking about emptiness of self, when we are analyzing the nature of the self-grasping. As I mentioned yesterday, there will be, there are steps, and different teachers use different techniques. And one of the techniques which I mentioned yesterday, because until we have certain levels of understanding of emptiness. We are emptiness of self or emptiness of I. Until we have that understanding of emptiness, we are unable to differentiate the I and what is added on, what is exaggerated, unable to differentiate. For example, today I read one book, a person who is wearing a very, dark glasses and viewing very, very wide, snow mountain, until he or she take off that dark glasses, he or she will unable to, even he or she is able to think that mountain is not blue or not dark, but he or she always perceive color, blue or dark, as long as wearing that dark glasses. Similar to that, it is said, until we have a certain levels of understanding of emptiness, we are unable to differentiate what is the I that exists and what is the exaggerated on the I, which does not exist. Simply that is exaggeration. Simply that is exaggeration. So, and that is what, one of the techniques saying, when you are meditating on the emptiness of the self, really go through that. Whatever I appears to you, just letter I, or something very solid, something with body, something with the mind, something with the experience, something with the memory, something with the identity, nationality, whatever. Try to reject. That is not I. These all are exaggerated. That's the stages of do the meditation. But at the same time, for us, it is for the practitioner, it is important every now and then to remind ourselves, I or the self does exist. In that way, then our spiritual training, like, ethics, practicing ethics, expressing love and compassion. May I express love and compassion to others. That happens because of the existence of I. If I didn't exist, how can I express? That is one area when we talk about conventional, what you call the conventional existence of I. In this context here, in the text which we briefly touched on yesterday, saying, Master, this is not the same. Dreams are not created by oneself. Though false, they arise spontaneously. Birth in the higher realms, lower realms, ethical norms of affirmation and the rejection are created. So this one is important. One are created. That word is something important, which, when we talk about conventional reality, conventional reality. So then now I'm going to bring this term. Many of you have heard many times, and not only you have heard, I think you have used that term. what is that conventional existence I? Then, for me also now, I've used this English word many times, but in Tibetan, I will immediately say nga tsam, nga tsam. Nga is the I, tsam is the mere I. What is it? Mere I. Sometimes the term is used, just nominated I. Those are the terms used in English. There are many others. I will not use all. Just use this. Mere I. Some. Nga. I. Some. Mere. I don't know my pronunciation is right or wrong. MERE. That is the mere I. So what is that? The term mere. What is the function of that term mere? And that is important. Or another term which I just mentioned, nominated I. What is that? But we will just stick with the mere. In Tibetan, when I come back to Tibetan, nga, tsam, that tsam really, what's called cuts or excludes many things. That word is samda in Tibetan. Samda checha. Sam is that term. Da is that sound. Checha, that means that is the term to use to exclude. What exclude by that term in Tibetan? Sam, and in English, mere I. That term sam in English, mere, it excludes something from its own right. That is, that term mere excludes something from something from its own side or its own right. That is excluded. That mere sound, that term does not exclude existence of I. That does not exclude function of I. That does not exclude I goes from this life to next life. That does not exclude I eat, I drink, I walk. Not at all. It excludes only one thing, that is existence from its own right. That is what is excluded. So that I which exists, now if you go back to that convention, how can I conventionally exist? It exists dependently. That's clear. It exists dependently, not its own, from its own right. So think about it. Because sometimes people, even in Tibetan, when we say nga tsam, mere I, that mere sounds excluding, the function of I, all those things. I functions properly, completely, without from its own right. And that is important. And that is how I conventionally exist. And it is not just I. All things and events exist in that fashion or in that manner. So just change our subject a little bit. Well, I'll come back that again. Just you may fed up repeating again and again. but I will come back to this. But I want to look at a little bit on the text itself. So here, there is a question and answer between the what's called Atisha and his student Dom, which I will read a little bit that, because it seems today my conventional eye is very much gone into focus on our discussion. I even didn't hear that much about the noise of the students. And as soon as I start to change my topic and my mind a little bit, concentration lost a little bit, and I hear the noise. Okay. So here the analysis is done with the the 5 sense objects and 5 sense consciousnesses and the consciousness itself and its object. That is what the main analysis in here. So if this is so, is self-grasping the root of attachment and aversion, and this is one's own mind, asked Drom. So Drom asked that question. If the self-grasping is the root of attachment and aversion, and this is one's own mind. Now talking about the self-grasping is very much rooted within our mental continuum, not something outside that distorted mental state. Then what is the color of the mind? Asked Atisha. So this time Atisha took the role, asked question to his student Drom. And this is something I found when I was reading this in the other day. It is more like Atisha is the teacher. He is testing his student. If that is so, saying, what is the color of the mind? I have never seen it. Then what kind of shape does it have? Asked Atisha again. Master, I have never seen it. Since it exists with neither color nor shape, and also since it has never been seen with the eyes, this indicates that it does not exist as a form. So then it continues to the eye consciousness, sound, smell, taste, tactile. It is mainly talking about analysis. This great Indian master, what is his name? Vasubandhu, when he wrote this amazing text called Abhidhamma Kosha, Treasure of Knowledge. And, he answered one of the fundamental questions, in the sutras, Buddha's teachings attributed to the Buddha. In those sutras, very often when Buddha, like Heart Sutra, when Buddha started to list, Buddha always start with the 5 sense objects. First, form, smell, taste, tactile. And then Vasubandhu said, why it always started from that list, start from the form, those sense objects? Because human beings like us, we are very much attached to those sense objects. Our minds, everything is very much coded up with the sense objects. Either we want to see nice shapes and colors and forms, or we want to reject those unpleasant shapes and colors. And that is continue to smell, taste, tactile, and so forth. I want to tell you one most short story. Yeah. And story is this. As I mentioned the other day, when I went to Delhi, one of, I think some of you know this Indian lady. She came to Jamyang, I think early 2006, 7, 8, maybe even earlier, because she is Indian. She and her husband, they both used to work in the cities. And then she retired. She's a little bit older, and she retired. And then her husband was posted to New York. Now they live in New York. Very, very nice Indian couple. I mean, he is not Buddhist, but she is very, very serious Buddhist practitioner. And she had a very good, what's called Veda traditions understanding, this Hindu teachings. And so we have occasionally discussion. And recently she said, I'm coming to India. And if you need anything, I will bring something. And so my mind go very, very strange mood. And I thought immediately, cheese. It is very, very strange. Mind is very strange. Later I found, why I said cheese? But it can, cheese. Not only cheese, it came up blue cheese. And other cheese. And so, beautiful, very tasty. And I met, because she's in Delhi. And then, so we met in a restaurant, we had nice dinner. And she gave me these nice cheese and chocolates and other things. So I couldn't resist to have a small piece of cheese, even though that evening was around 10:30 after I moved to my hotel room. And I had a really big dinner, but I couldn't resist not to have a small piece of cheese. And that is the attachment. Pure attachment. I really, my tummy was full. We had a very, really big dinner. They ordered many foods. But I couldn't resist. That is the sign. So we are very much, caught up in this form, smell, taste, tactile, sound, and so forth, isn't it? And so that is here, or the Naga, what's his name? Vasubandhu said, because we are very much caught up in these five sense objects with the five sense consciousnesses. If we really want to redo, we should start from here. And that's why Buddha started always, let's start with the form, then goes to feeling, then goes to smell, and so on and so forth. And that is really important. And here it is also same analysis is done in the same order. First form, then smell, then taste, then sound, then taste, then tactile, to search where the taste is there. Taste is there, delicious taste or not very delicious taste is there because of meeting many factors together, and then there is a taste. That's what it's saying. There isn't a taste its own right from its own side. It is simply combination of many factors, including our sense, taste, sense, consciousnesses. I mean, we may say these days in brain, there's a cell with signal you want. So that's the case. And it is useful, to look at this analysis. And yeah. Okay, no. There's another one which comes to the next page, saying fabrications of conceptualization can appear too. Fabrication, and this is what important word, a term which used Tokpe Rangso. Rang means, I or the self or the individual. So means create nice banana cake, create. So Tokpe Rangso. Tokpa is the conceptualization, the conceptual mind. That our conceptual mind really, twists many things. To see the reality as it is, the main obstacle is this conceptual mind. Our conceptual mind. And that's what here, saying fabrication of conceptualization can appear too, responded Atisha. Master, even a fabrication can be preceded by their own, propensity. And that is, talking about, for example, our conceptual mind. Our five sense consciousnesses from the Buddhist understanding is very much, just, the seeing and, tasting and hearing. Not that the actual digestion, good or bad, nice or not nice, is done by the conceptual mind, not the sense consciousnesses. Good or bad, right and wrong, delicious or not delicious, all these are followed, because of in a very quick manner, the conceptual mind's labels. And that labels goes to, again, why, then it says, the fabrication, and preceded by their propensities, that propensities or that seeds, which is within our mental continuum, that triggers our label. Oh, this is nice. This is not nice. And that is what, very often these powerful companies, when they advertise, in a very short moment, or just few seconds, flashing to then it immediately give the sign, give the information, and that keeps the propensity. Then when we see the real object, that propensity comes back and we want to buy it. We want to buy it. And that is how our mind works. So, in other words, point what I'm making here is, what we see, what we think, what we are attached to, what we have aversion to. All these are very much through these different stages, not by their own, on and off on their own side, not like that. It is through these different stages. So that is something very, very useful to remember. So there's another one expression which I want to read. It is in English. It says this. So, you, all people, should not add meaningless branches and leaves onto a non-existent tree. Just, I'll read that. You of all people should not add meaningless branches and leaves onto a non-existent tree. So what is that non-existent tree that the saying should not add it on leaves and the branches? What is that non-existent tree the Atisha or the Dom is referring to? It is referring to that in our thought, in our belief, in our believing system, there is an I which exists its own right, exists from its own right. That is the non-existent tree. And saying, on that non-existent tree should not add it meaningless branches and leaves. Very nice imagery upon it. That's what we do. We have a deep belief, propensity that there's I which exists very, its own right, its own side. Then we want to cherish, protect, feed, and all this. These are the meaningless branches and leaves that we added on the non-existent tree. That is very nice, upon the very nice expression. All of this is the mind. Okay. So now, if that I is that like here in this expression, that non-existent tree, what kind of I that we are talking about in this context? Non-existent tree. That analogy is the non-existent tree. The meaning here is the I. What kind of I that we are talking about? Like, similar to the non-existent tree that we are talking about. We are not talking about conventional I. We are not talking about conventionally existing I. What we are talking about is, we are talking about that exaggerated I. What is that exaggerated I? I which exists from its own right. That is the meaningless tree, non-existent tree. Conventional I, which earlier that we used the term, the mere I, ngatsam, nominal I, tak something I. So that does exist, and it exists. Not just it does exist, it functions properly. In our daily lives, from morning waking up, evening going to bed, that mere existing I functions very properly. That is here, should not, mixed up these two. Nominally existing I, or mere I, and exaggerated I should not. The exaggerated I does not exist. What is that exaggerated I? That is in our thought, in our mind, believing that I exist from its own right. Quite finger-pointable nature. That doesn't exist. So these two should be slowly try to differentiate in our daily the practice or the meditation and so forth. Okay, now I'm going to do one small question and answer before we end. There are two questions. I think I may have answered those two. I'm not sure, but I will try again. Two people have good questions. When within the 5 paths, do practitioners reach greater capacity to lift and inspire their mind and heart, and are able to sustain that? I think I may have answered that question, but I will repeat that again. The 5 paths, it is the some of you know very well. It is talking about different stages. In the Mahayana tradition, when our realization of emptiness is marked in the 5 different stages. And that's what this 5 paths is talking about. So short answer to this question is, as I mentioned the other day, when our realizations become a very much spontaneous, very much part of our way of thinking, our way of experiencing, then it is very, very difficult to deteriorate. Even if this body completely gone, it will leave certain trace to the next. So, the heart are able to sustain that. Yes, my short answer is yes. If somebody is in the stage of these 5 paths, even he or she is the first path, which is called path of accumulation, that whatever he or she gain realization in that stage, this will sustain. This will not deteriorate. It is said, for example, bodhicitta, Sattva. People who know bodhicitta, that there is a, I will not go there. Anyway, it says bodhicitta can, can deteriorate, but it is very rare. When somebody really gain bodhicitta fully, that deterioration is possible, but at a very certain stage, not, later on. That is what it's saying. But here the point is, their mind and heart and are able to sustain. Yeah. And so I would say yes. At all more basic level. Now, what practices can help one reach the capacity to inspire one's mind based on their teachers, but not necessarily based on, I think this I did yesterday, not necessarily based on regular classes. I think that I may have answered this yesterday, but I want to just repeat that again. Maybe now this year is starting to nearly end. We are now, in December. Yeah. So next year, sometime we may have a reading of this sutra of recalling three jewels, Dotabanyesha, which is very nice, beautiful. I read this as I mentioned the other day. So yes, that seeing good qualities of others will help. The other can be our teachers, or other can be strangers. When we see the other good qualities of others, that will inspire if oneself genuinely wants that kind of good qualities, like good heart, very compassionate, very generous, and so on and so forth. I think I read those two questions. It seems there's no new question. I thought there's a new question. Is there a new question?
Geshe, there's one from Dom. Shall I just read it?
Okay, yeah.
So, how do we know? Sorry, Dom, I'm just going to do it for you. How do we know what ethical discipline we really hold if we aren't tested? He's referring back to what you said, when you never really know what we will do when our good conditions run out. Will we steal to feed ourselves? He says, how do we know what ethical discipline will hold if we're not tested? Is there any value in suffering? The suffering of a cold cave in the Himalayas seems to have no value, and yet perhaps maybe that's where we really begin to practice.
Okay. It is so that's Dom. So I saw Dom yesterday. You are holding your newborn child, so that is that he or she will teach you the what you call this, the ethical discipline.
Yes.
You can look at, you have a genuine caring to your child, or it is a strong attachment. I don't know. It can be both, difficult, different shape. So yes, it is difficult, but we don't need to go to Himalaya cave to test our ethical discipline. We can do that test whether we have ethical discipline or not in our own place. Because the people who have a strong habit to have a good sleep, you can test that to your ethical discipline, how much you can do that. Okay, there's one question my friend John Bernal is going to ask. So that will be, then we will stop there. Okay, John, go ahead.
Hi, Geshe. The question is what the experience of the mere eye is like. In that I can see how there's always a locus, a point of view at any moment,
yes,
which you could call a mere eye, but the continuity of one moment to the next.
Okay.
So that continuity from one moment, the next moment, the next moment, one day, the next day.
Okay.
How does this sense of continuity relate to the mere eye?
Okay, great, John. Are you still making your pottery? I want to give that as an example.
I am. Here's one.
Okay. So when you turn that wheel to turn the clay, and as soon as you touch your hand to the clay to shape the clay into a particular cup or whatever, what makes that first round to the second round to the third round to the fourth round? That continuation of going round and round and round. You use either machine, or in here traditionally, somebody is pulling the wheel.
I use a machine.
So that machine pushes one first round to the second round to the third round. There isn't any other, substratum to make that round, that will turning again and again and again. It's really continuation of turning one round to the next round is due to these all factors come together, not there is some kind of substratum holding to go to the next first round to the next round.
Because the wheel has no sense of identity. I have a sense of, when I go round in circles, if I span round in circles like an ice skater, let's say, sort of a wheel, then there would be a continuity in my experience.
Yeah, it is same, isn't it? When your hands touching the clay, the first touch sense that you say, oh, cold now, and my hand's cold. That goes to the first sense, to the next, second, the third second. There isn't any, they're all binding one. It is just simply factors come together. It has the continuation.
So can I just follow that out once more? So if I had given up the false view, the false view, so only the mere I.
Okay.
And let's say in my sleep, I was on a train, sleeper train. So I go to sleep in London and I wake up in Paris. Okay. Why is there the same sense of self there? Or is that I'm still stuck with my added? Would I feel entirely like a different person when I got off the train in Paris the next morning?
Okay, that is your feeling. I don't know. That's real or not real. Okay, John. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Geshe. Keep well.
Continue to making clear points.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll say the 21 Tara prayers. Is there nobody? Yeah, anyway, we'll end here. And thank you very much. Om Je Pama Doma Vacha Se Chanze Doma Nima Ba Jene Geje Lo Dangja Jiden Sunggun Chuji She Kesa Chewa Leni Chanze Dongge Dawa Kawa Jeni Zigbe She Doma Dongda Choba Rado Chewe Chanze Sengwe Chuni Peme Chan Namba Jimba Zundu Padu She Soba Samden Jun Chanze Teshin Shebe Zu Taye Nambara Ju Malu Paro Jimba Yave Seji Shindu Den Chanze Duda Rahun Duda Choda Namba Kang Jide Dombo Shadin Leba Meba Guba Chanze Jajin Mela Zang Long La Na Zo Wang Ju Che Chongbo Rong La Ji Sa Nu Jun Cao Di Dun Te Chanze Te Je Cha Dang Pe Paro Chogo Rabo Jo E Jun Yu Gong Yin Jiang Sha Di Me Paro Choba Shin Do Ba Chanze Do Re Ji Ba Chen Dui Ji Ba O Nang Paro Jo Chu Ji Shen Nen Chong Yin Den Zhao Tam Je Ma Lu Sun Chanze Gunjo Song Zhen Chang Seme Toga Nambara Je Malu Choje Kolo Je Rangi Weje Song Chu Chanze Rabdo Gawa Je Ojin Weje Chengwa Be Sheba Ra She Du Da Ra De Dan Jig Den Wang Du Ze Chanze Sa Shi Zhong We Cho Tam Je Gu Ba Yin Chonyin Ye Wa Yi Ge Pongpa Tam Je Nambara Du Chanze Dawe Dongbo Genpa Tam Je Shin Du Ba Rebe Chune Reba Dabar Shin Do Ho Ze Chanze Gebe Tam Barwe Tingwe Une Ye Jang Yung Gum Pune Ko Jai Pongye Nambara Chong, Chanze Sashi Ngola Cha, Tilji Nijin Shati Tong, Chonye Jenze Ige, Remba Dobo Namni Ke, Chanze Dema Gema Shi, Nyange Deshin Chuyuni, Soa Onda Yanda De, Dewa Chenpo Jomba, Chanze Kune Horvata, Jai Dune Nambara Ke, Ige Chube Ngani Ko, Rewa Hongde Jomani, Chanze Ture Shamin, Hongge Nambe Sabuni, Rera Menda Radambi, Chiden Sumna Yewani, Chanze Lai Zoyin, Reda Dajin Chanun, Dara Niju Pedi, Dena Malu Bani Se, Chanze Lai Zonun De, Hada Nian Jide, Gune Goja Gawaji, Zeda Melo Nieba Se, Chanze Nima Dawaji, Jinye Bola Oro Se, Hara Niju Dudar, Shindo Chabe Rinne Se, Chanze Tinin Sunun, Shive Tudan Dan, Deda Roma Niju Zon, Chomba Dure Rajon, Sawe Ngaji Beban, Chanze Wani, Gewa De Gewa, Sanama Yeshe Tsaba, Sanama Yeshe Lechun, Amba Kuni, Chanjo Senjo Rinpo Che, Maje Panam De Gewa Nyamba Meba, Kone Kondo Pe, Kari Gave Kore Shinpa, Pendan Malu Chere Se, Tenzin Jato, Shabe Sede Pan, Tenjo. Oh yeah. Thank you everyone. And thank you Peter and Trey organizing this. And so hopefully I'll see you, what you call it, not on the screen, but in the real world, if real world exists, in sometime in UK next year. That's my hope. I'm working on that. And also sometime next year, I'd like to do like similar to this kind of class. And so I will see you there. And until then, to have a good time during the Christmas, not drink too much, not eat too much. I'm just teasing you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Geshe.
Good night.